Screencast 26. AX2009 and Reports, Part 2. Last time we wrote a report, and we pulled this enum called ledger posting type, and we had a column called symbol, and one called int value, and one called label. Do you remember how this was created? There was a data method, which called the sample code report library sample.samplecode.getAXenum, and I provided the name ledger posting type. So it's clear that this method gets exactly this one specific enum. What we want to do now is show you how to get any enum. In other words, let the user at runtime of the report pick which enum to get. So what we're going to need to do is obviously add a parameter, and we're going to take the input from that parameter and pass it to getAXenum. Let's start by creating that parameter. In the parameters node in the report model, I'll simply say add parameter, and I'll create one called enum name. So enum name, you can see its properties are set to allow blank false. The data type is already system.string, which is correct. What's the default value? Let's go ahead and pick the same one we had, which was ledger posting type. I'll just copy it. And go back to that parameter and set the default value like this. Okay, and I did that very fast. Let me do it again. I'm going to click on the ellipsis, and you can see enum values. The default value can come from a data set. It can be non-queried, which in other words means I type something in the report, or it could just be a default of null. I only want a specific value, so we'll leave this as false. And I'll leave the rest alone for right now. Let's just verify everything's okay and nothing is odd with the report by previewing the report. You can see ledger posting type is there. Now, I didn't actually transmit that value from the parameter to the query, but we'll do that. Or sorry, transmit the value from the parameter to the data method, but we will do that. And the question is, how can we do that? Got to think about this one. So clearly, we've got this data table, and now the question is, how can I refer to a parameter, right? I mean, it's not as if I can do this dot parameters. There's no such, there's no such member on this report class. So scratching our heads now, how does this work? Let's go ahead. And remember, we did this technique before. We're going to add a parameter to the data method itself. We'll call this enum name, all lowercase. I'll go ahead and build. Now the build succeeded. What will happen if I try running it? Just want to always verify nothing odd has happened. That's what we wanted to see. Parameter count mismatch. So notice again, we didn't get the problem during build. We got it trying to preview the report. And what it's trying to say is essentially this data method, which is bound to this data set, was asking for a parameter, a value, but I did not provide one. What we needed to do is just refresh that data set. Now it's asking me for a parameter. Now when it asks me for this value, it's not going to use this as a default value. It's just using this value at this one time so that the fields can be refreshed, right? So it can update itself. So we'll do ledger posting type. I just pasted it in there. You can see it ran. So a subtlety of this is that whenever you're dragging a data method, you're using a data method to provide data for a data set, it's good that data method needs to be able to run, and sometimes it takes parameters in order to get it to run correctly. Otherwise, this process of adding a data set or refreshing it will never work. Anyway, it runs. Let's go ahead and preview again to make sure nothing crazy is happening. There's the enum name. And the reason this was added, was because the system will always just add parameters based on that are bound to parameters in the report that are bound on parameters to the data set. So I didn't really even need to add my own. I can just reuse the one that was just added. And that would be the correct thing to do in this case. So I'll go ahead and delete it. Right? You notice this is the one I created. This is the one it created. Okay. So that's our first lesson. Let's preview it again. Now, if I run the report, it'll still, it doesn't matter what I type in here. It'll still run for ledger posting type, and we'll fix that bit by bit. Obviously, we have a parameter. Now we need to be able to render it and use that data when we execute the data set. So that is what we'll do. In this data method, instead of just passing in ledger posting type, and I'll just save this as default in case I need it later. What I will do is pass in the enum name. Default is a reserved keyword, so we'll store it like that. Let's build a solution. And of course, it's complaining that I never use this value, which is correct. Now let's go ahead and render the design again. Preview it. Now, if I go to report, of course, it'll complain no value is missing. I'll try my previous data of entering some garbage. And you can see, this is getting garbage now, right? This didn't really work. Now, I'll enter the, ledger posting type. Ledger posting type. There it is. Now you get ledger posting type. So now this works for any kind of enum. Let's go find another one and let's try it. I'm just going to bring up the AX client and we'll go into the AOT. And we'll find some enums. Well, there's one called ABC. Let's see how many values there are. There are just 4 values. Let's see what happens when I try it. Go back here and just enter ABC. And as you can see, now ABC are there. Now what if, now notice the title of the report still says ledger posting type. That's because I manually typed that string in. We want to change that, of course. So we'll go back to the report model, back to the design. Let me close this. And change the title. And we'll make this an expression. Now we could type in the parameter right there. Right? Parameters bang AX enum underscore enum value, enum name dot value. Let's build it and preview. Now ABC works. And what are some other enums? Let's try accept reject. What about account vatnum? Let's see how many types. There's just 2. Find something that has more. Okay, account order. There, now account order shows, and the title is correct. Now what happens if I type in something, if I type in nothing? Again, the parameter is missing a value. Can I type in something incorrect? And here you can see we've captured that incorrect value, or this completely bogus enum name here, which is correct. You'd expect to see that. But this HHH appears there. And there, do you remember why? Go back to the report and let's look at the design here. That's the no rows message. I typed this in the one of the previous screencasts. So we'll just say, we'll assume in this case that if there are no rows, that there are no enums, right? And we could do better here, but for right now, sorry, if there are no rows, that there was an incorrectly typed enum. We could do better than this. We could differentiate between the case of incorrectly specified enum, the wrong name, or really the enum has low values. But in this case, we'll just reuse the same no rows message. Oops, turned on sticky keys accidentally. No rows message will say no values for this enum. And now, see, I typed in this fake name. It says there's no values for this enum. And again, a better message would be, this enum itself is correct, but that's another cover error handling we'll cover later. So that was screencast 26. Thanks for your time as always.